A jury just delivering guilty verdicts against all three Georgia men facing federal hate crime charges in the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. Here is a closer look at the counts they were facing. Travis McMichael, his father Gregory McMichael, and their neighbor William Bryan, all convicted of violating Arbery's rights and attempting to kidnap him. The McMichaels also convicted on firearms charges. All three were already convicted of murder on the state level and sentenced to life in prison for chasing Arbery down in a South Georgia neighborhood and shooting him. The verdict coming almost 2 years to the day that Arbery was killed. Hope Ford was inside the federal courtroom in Brunswick as the verdicts were read this morning. Hope, what can you tell us about what that moment was like there?
Well, when the verdict, the judge came through and said that the verdict was first announced that they had a verdict in the first place. There were some family members on the Arbery side who started crying, and there was really no reaction from the defense. And that's kind of how it went through when the actual verdict was delivered about 45 minutes later. After that first guilty verdict, McMichael, Travis lowered his head a little bit, and there was really no reaction from that side of the courtroom throughout the entirety of reading through those verdicts. On the Arbery family side, you had Wanda Cooper Jones, who is Ahmaud Arbery's mother. She was shaking her head and nodding in agreement. And then you had Marcus Arbery, who was celebrating silently and kind of cheering a little bit, but not making any audible noise, as he would have been asked to leave the courtroom if he would have disrupted any of those courtroom proceedings. And so that's how the reaction kind of went throughout with both sides through there. Now, there were two interesting points where there was some emotion, but not from any of the family. Actually, the foreperson that was selected for this jury was the only black male on the jury. He kept his composure throughout the entire time until after that verdict was read. After the verdict was read, he did lower his head and start wiping away tears, letting out a cry. And then whenever the judge asked, or they were each asked if they gave their vote for the verdict willingly, he struggled to talk a little bit. His voice was breaking, and then he cried another time as well whenever the judge told them that acknowledged that this was a very difficult case. And then there were also members of the prosecution that cried as well. I talked to Paige Pate about that moment with the foreperson. He said that it was probably an intentional and very powerful message, probably the strongest message that they could have sent from this jury.
The federal government said, look, this is a priority. We want to send a message that not just the murder was wrong, but the reason they did it was wrong. And so I think, given the makeup of this jury, the fact that it comes from a mostly conservative South Georgia district here, rural people, some small town folks who got together, and even with that background, even with that conservative bent, found that this was just too much to tolerate, and they would not let the racism go unpunished.